Hey Stampers, this is Sandy McIver from Stamping and Blogging, and I have another little card for you today. This one is my thank you card for all my customers for September who ordered with me and were members of the Corgi Club for that month. And I got this beautiful stamp from the Heart stamp set. Isn't it beautiful? So the details are on, we'll have little pop-ups that give you the numbers for these, and they're also on the project sheet that we're going to be sharing with you for this project as well. So let me get the stamps out of the way, and I just want to show you how I created it, okay? The first thing I did was I stamped the image with StazOn Black onto a piece of our shimmery white cardstock, and the reason that I'm using that is because I'm going to be using the lid of my ink pad, and this is Crumb Cake, and what I did was I squeezed it and I also added a little bit of re-inker to it, okay? I'm also needing my aqua painter, and I'm needing a scrap of paper to clean, or this is paper towel, and I use this to clean my end of my aqua painter with. And so what I'm doing is I'm picking up a small amount of the red and I'm painting part of my image. And for the center part, you want it a little bit lighter, so see how I'm just pulling it out from the edge, and because I'm doing this, I'm diluting it with a little bit of water, and it's got kind of a pinky tinge to it, but that's okay because we're going to be antiquing it, and that will kind of fix it for you, okay? So the only two things I painted with the Cherry Cobbler Red was this little sentiment across the top, the sentiment flag, and the little teapot that we have going on here. And what I did was kind of a base coat all the way over, and I'm doing this quickly, so please forgive me if I go outside the lines. I'm just trying to give you the image without this being a 20-minute long video, okay? So I colored the whole thing, and then I went back and I picked up some more ink, and where the stamp artist has provided those little dashes, that means that it's a little bit darker there, okay? So you can go back and you can highlight that. All right, so just adding a little bit there, and I'm going to move that out of the way, and I'm going to bring in, this is my soft suede, and again I'm going to be using my aqua painter, and I want a little bit of the brown, but I want to make sure that it's diluted a little bit, and I come in and I just add a little bit of highlight underneath there for a little bit of shadow. All right, and you might want to take a little bit more time than I'm taking, but I just want to give you the idea, okay? And I'm highlighting a little bit there, and that got a little bit dark, so I just cleaned off my aqua painter, and I'm going to go in and try and blend that a little bit, okay? So there we go so far. Now I'm pushing this in because I want the lid to be underneath my ink pad because I'm going to start using my sponge. And I ink up my sponge, and I always start off of the image that I'm going to be playing with. And this is going to get dark in a spot because it's a little bit damp. So hold on a sec, I'm just going to go dry it, okay? Okay, so I went and used my heat tool to dry this with. And so again, I'm marking up, stamping my sponge into my ink. I'm going to start out here because you get that nice little mess when you first start, and then I go in a circular motion to add the ink to it. All right, so now it's a little brown and it's not really patinaed the way I wanted it to. So bring in your more mustard and your more mustard sponge, and again ink up your sponge and add a little bit of more mustard to it. Now isn't that cool how you get the nice patina just by adding those two colors together? I wanted to share that with you because that's a really nice easy way of antiquing something, and if you had to make as many of these cards as I had to make, and I'm not complaining, I love all my customers very, very much, but when you're mass producing a card, and you know Christmas is coming, so we're looking at a lot of us mass producing cards, this is a nice easy way to add a little bit of interest without adding a whole pile of work. All right, and it just gives it a really, really nice finish. And so then the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to cut it out, and you're going to add some dimensionals to the back. And the next thing I need to do is I need to emboss this. So I'm just going to retool. I'll be back in a second. Alrighty, so I have my big shot here, and we're ready to work on the next portion, and that's the background that I embossed. And I did it with the Holiday Framelits embossing folder, and this is in the Holiday Mini Catalog. And if you were looking at our video videos that we did on the how-tos for the Big Shots. You'll find them in the Stamping and Blogging library. You'll notice that I was talking that it would only go through this way, it wouldn't go through this way, because Sizzix had retooled and made it a little bit longer so that it worked with all the international overseas people such as Europe and Australia, who make a little bit different size cards than we do. I needed to do something the other day and I wanted it to go through sideways, and so what I did was, once again, we whacked our embossing folder. So just a heads up here, if you take your rubber scissors and you cut about 1/4 of an inch off, and I'm looking to see if I saved a piece, I did, woohoo, here's how much I took off. So if you cut that off, and unfortunately it does damage the images just a tiny bit, but you can still see them, and I did it on the front and the back, okay? Guess what? It fits through this way. So there you go. All right, so I want to emboss the front of my card. So I have it all cut, and I've also scored it, and I've also folded it because I'm trying to get it even in here, so that was good direction for me for the lines. Okay, so if you cut your embossing folder, you can put it in this way, and you're going to use 1 tab. If you don't want to cut your embossing folder, the easy solution is to simply put this behind it. So now you've got a piece of paper behind it, but now remember that you have increased the thickness of this, so you need to take the tab 1 and move it off of your multi-purpose platform. Okay, and I'm going to do that for this one. And I've got a cutting pad. I have my card inside with my piece I don't want embossed out the back. I'm placing that down, and I'm adding my other cutting pad on top and running it through my Big Shot. Let's see how we did. Isn't that beautiful? Woohoo! Okay, so let me show you how nice and fast this card goes together now. We'll just get the Big Shot out of the way. Set it over there. All right, so you're going to use your 2.5 inch circle punch and the new Glimmer paper. This is the Champagne. It is also in the Holiday Mini Catalog. Okay, so what I have is I have my Champagne Glimmer paper that I punched out with my 2.5 inch circle punch. All right, I have my art piece that I have stamped and painted and I have cut out. I've also got dimensionals on the back of it, and I'm just going to remove the little back guys off camera for a sec because I have so much fun with those guys. And you're going to center that onto the piece of Glimmer paper. And the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your ribbon, and you can see on here that I use the crocheted ribbon. I also, when I'm sending a lot of cards in the mail, I like to use the seam binding ribbon because it is a little bit thinner, and so the knot doesn't go up quite so high. And if you're careful about where you place it inside your envelope, you don't have to pay for additional postage when you use this. And I know as we get into the holiday season, a lot of us mail an awful lot of cards, and 20 cents is okay, but if you're 20 cents times 100, it gets a little bit expensive. There we go. Okay, so I tied that off. I'm just going to trim my ribbon out. I'm going to move it over there where I want it, hopefully. Now, I'm going to do my little glue dot trick where I take a glue dot and I want my ribbon, those have got to be the stickiest glue dots ever, I want my ribbon to be nice and flat, so I'm just going to pop a glue dot under there, and I know that my art piece is going to cover that, okay, and that's why I stuck it there. And again, we're going to put glue dots on the back of this, and I'm not using snail on purpose because it's going onto an embossed surface. I got to tell you, this is the stickiest package of glue dots that I've ever owned. They do not want to come off of their piece of paper. We'll be replacing these before we do the next video, just so you know. All right, so I've got my glue dots on the back, and now I'm going to center my piece on my embossing. Stick it in the middle here so you can see where I'm going with it. Okay. And then the last thing I did was I brought my rhinestones, and I like using these little guys and something pokey to stick underneath, and I'm looking for the circle part of the design on the embossing, and I'm adding a few pretty little rhinestones to it just to add a little bling. Okay, so that's how I finished this card. and mailed them out to everybody, and I'm getting all kinds of lovely thank you notes in the mail from my customers who like that and think that that's a great idea. And then I also wanted to show you a little bit more. I had a spare card and I got a little crazy with it. And let me just tell you what I did. Everything was exactly the same, but what I did was I took my Versamark ink pad before I had all of this on here, and I'm going to use my StazOn to illustrate because I don't have my Versamark in front of me. I made sure that it was nice and flat, and I just very gently ran my Versamark over top so that I just hit the raise part, and then I covered it with gold embossing powder. I shook off all the excess, and then I heat set it, and I got this beautiful image on here. Now, isn't it pretty? Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a video on how we did these lovely bows. So you can find that under, I think I'm going to stick it under techniques, so you'll find it in there. Okay? Have fun!